Did you know that Coca-Cola gets almost 2/3 of their sales from outside of the United States? When you look at big brands and companies that have become part of our everyday conversations, you'll see that many of them get the majority of their growth from customers outside of the United States. And that word growth is the key. In today's hyper-competitive markets, companies are looking to grow so they can better scale and improve their profitability. If you're a US-based business getting all your revenue within those borders, you're missing what some would call a big opportunity. On the other hand, if you run a business based outside of the US, you may be looking for growth from new geographies. Some great ideas from innovation are often found by looking at how people solve problems when they have limited resources or a different sense of workable solutions. Looking for opportunities to expand your business by moving to new geographic markets and finding offerings to add to your portfolio mean you have to pay attention to what's happening around the globe. And when you do, chances are you'll discover a new market to deliver growth for your company. What does this mean for you? As a marketer, you should be looking at the growth rate for your product in your industry, in your home market, and comparing that to the growth rate for your industry in your product categories in other markets. In what countries is the demand for your product or service growing faster? Are your competitors going into those markets? Do you see innovations or substitutes that would affect the adoption of your product in these new countries? As you uncover more data about activities in global markets, you may identify a new initiative that could bring another revenue stream or greater market share for you. Think of how moving into other geographies can help your company or product grow even faster. Tariffs and quotas are tools that governments use to protect their industries in their home markets or make it more difficult for non-domestic companies to succeed. A tariff, sometimes called a tax or duty, is used by a government to raise the price of a product being imported into their country. Countries do this for a variety of reasons. A common rationale is to ensure that your country is always able to produce and supply the materials necessary for defense or support your key industries. So what does this have to do with marketing? The reality is, you have to know if the product or category you're going to take into another market will be hit with a tariff, because this will increase the price of your product. Here's an example. Let's say you work for a company in China making widgets. Your cost is $1 per widget, and you sell them for $1.25 within China. You're looking to grow in the US. The current market price for widgets in the US is $1.35. Then you learn the US government has a 25% tariff on incoming widgets. This would mean your total costs are now $1.25. This will make a real dent in your plans because you may not be able to accept the margin hit. A quota is just a variation on the same theme. Rather than adding an extra tax on the product, a government will limit the amount of product that can be imported. It's important for you to do your research in advance to determine if your industry is involved in any trade disputes or if you have to factor any tariffs or quotas into your planning process. You can do this by contacting the U.S. Commercial Services at buyusa.gov and asking if your industry is covered by any tariffs or quotas. They have offices in more than 100 cities in the U.S. and more than 80 countries around the world. Other sources of information include industry trade groups, embassies, and export-import consultants. Even if you and your company are not based in the U.S., virtually every country has a government function focused on helping their industries export their products to other markets. They're a fantastic source of information. By staying connected with the government agencies that support your industry, you can certainly stay abreast of changes in tariffs and duties. You may also uncover information about new and pending regulations that can impact your product designs and offerings. I think you will benefit by using these resources to your advantage. Increasingly, today's consumers are relying on social media, the internet, and customer rating scores to gather information on what to buy and where to go. And as a result, we're seeing the rise of the global consumer. Nowhere is this more apparent than the global teenager. Thanks to the widespread use of smartphones, today's music, fashion, politics, arts, and games, you name it, circle the globe in minutes. These digital natives capture what strikes them at the moment, comment on it, and send it on to the rest of the world. The rise of the global consumer means marketers can now find ideas, concepts, and messages that have global appeal. Also, a critically important marketing tool for you to consider is the online customer review. I'm sure you are quite familiar with the 5-star rating seen on the numerous online markets and shops. Regardless of where you intend to market your products and services, the most important advice I can give is to ensure that you are encouraging your great customers to give you positive ratings. In the event someone gives you a negative rating, you must react and respond quickly to address those concerns raised. While ratings are important, you also need to ensure your products are tapping into those global themes important to your customers. Here's how to put this concept to work within your company. I want you to create a grid that has your products and services listed across the top. Then along the side, list some of the global themes as you see them. For example, let's say you have a business selling clothing made of a new fabric blend, and you want to expand out of your home market in Germany. Across the top of this grid, put your product categories that today consist of gym workout gear and hiking gear. On the side, list some of the global themes, such as healthy lifestyles, environmental consciousness, and feeling strong. Your next step is to fill the blanks with some insights that strike you about these global themes and how you can tap into them for your business. I encourage you to do this exercise and get others in your business to help you brainstorm insights to fill the boxes. Doing this may help you identify new products, features, and market claims. And by getting others involved, you will benefit by building other ambassadors for your product within your company while opening yourself to new voices and ideas. One big mistake companies can make when entering new countries is assuming that what matters to your company is also important to or valued by the potential customers in this new market. Each company has its own personality that's constructed of those things valued by the founders usually, and then carried through the products, services, policies, decisions, and actions taken by the employees. All this rolls into what is commonly referred to as the company culture. Some companies take the time to write down their values and mission. Others publish a set of operating principles or some other document that guides their employees. It's very important that you understand the culture of your company when thinking about expanding into new geographies. The reason is there are some countries where the government, people, and culture are going to be very closely aligned with what matters to your company. And there are others where what matters most to your company may be in direct conflict with the predominant culture in another region of the world. This isn't to say that you can't expand internationally if you don't have a written description of your company's culture. But if you don't have something already documented to help guide your way, I'd suggest you take some time to capture a few guiding principles. We can do this by gathering some leaders within your organization and documenting the conversation in a basic table. A good way to do this is to create a few columns. One column can be entitled What We Value or What's Important to Us. Under this heading, capture the things important to your company. Areas such as how you view your customers, how employees are treated, how conflicts are resolved, how priorities are set, can be good thought starters to capture here. Then, create a second column entitled Where We Draw the Line. Under this heading, note some points that would be out of character for your company. Examples here may include using lower quality components to improve margins. In reality, your company culture may not mesh with the policies and politics in every country. That is okay. You just need to acknowledge this and ensure your organization is aligned. Doing this exercise will help you better understand what's important to your company and help you think about how to export your culture into a new geography. In a recent survey of CEOs about their organizations, the dominant theme is that the biggest gap in terms of time and capability is the amount of energy put into strategic planning. We often get caught up in tactical issues and don't have the time to plan properly. We're going to focus here on a tool to help solve that problem. The reality is we have to make choices about the projects we can afford to do, and that includes making the decision of whether or not to expand internationally. A good first step is to create a grid to help demonstrate where there may be opportunities to grow outside of your home market. To do this, you need to gather some data. I recommend beginning with the size and growth rate of the industry or category in which you would compete and the countries you're considering for expansion. To find the size and growth rate of an industry within a different country, the first place to look is to the trade group or organization that covers your industry. The U.S. Foreign and Commercial Service Division of the International Trade Administration's office is another source. You can find information from them at buyusa.gov. If you compete against publicly traded companies, you may find useful information in their filings and shareholder reports. Once you have your data compiled, it's time to chart them so you can visually communicate the opportunity for your company. The left side, or y-axis, is for the growth rate of the industry, and across the bottom, or x-axis, is for the size of the markets you're tracking. With the information you've uncovered using this grid, you'll have a picture of where opportunities lie in a much more engaging way than a spreadsheet. For example, this matrix can become even more interesting when you use bubbles to convey the population size of each of the markets. And when you look at those markets in the top right, in essence, those with large markets with high growth rates, it's likely you'll notice some of your competitors are increasing their activities in those geographies. If you feel you're a little late to the game, perhaps focus on those in the top left quadrant, offering high growth in smaller markets. These may be places where you can gain share before your competitors notice. The key is to present the information that is important to you and your company. I encourage you to experiment with this tool and think of different options that will be meaningful to you as you make your decision on which markets to enter. Did you know the number 4 is considered unlucky in Japan? It's not uncommon for buildings to skip the 4th floor in their numbering scheme. If you're thinking of entering Japan with a new product, it isn't advisable to put them into the consumer market in a package of 4. Where do you find people who know a market that is completely and in every sense of the word foreign to you? One way is to look for an expatriate of the country or countries you're considering. With today's global economy, there are likely many people living in your city who were born and raised in the country of interest. Often, there are organizations in larger cities that exist to help expatriates stay in touch with their homeland and culture. How do you find these organizations? The Chamber of Commerce in your town should be able to help. Is there a university near you? If so, chances are pretty good you can find a student group or professor from the country of interest. You can tap into them to network and learn more about the consumers in which you're interested. You may want to hire a marketing research firm for this task, and many of them can use interviewers who speak and recruit with your future target audience in their own language. The important thing is that you cannot assume the people who will buy and use your product or service in another country want and value the same thing as those in your home market. Before investing your time and the company's money to get into the new geography, you may avoid some significant pitfalls by using one of these methods to engage in a conversation and learn. Think of how you can begin to engage people who live in your own town but come from a different homeland to give you insights into consumers in those markets. We all have a passion about our homelands. I think you'll find your neighbors and others in your community would love to talk with you about the culture, tastes, and behaviors in the land where they grew up. What makes one country different from another? It's more than just the borders and outlining the land and the language being spoken. When you're thinking of entering a new geography with your business, there are several factors that must be considered. A commonly used framework is to analyze the political, economic, social, technological, competitive, and legal structure in new countries. The shorthand for this is PESTCL. Some pronounce it PESTL. We'll explore each factor one by one in this chapter and start with the political factor first. Researching and learning the political structure of another country is actually more simple than you may think. Online government resources such as CIA.gov have up-to-date information on how governments are structured and the current political trends in every country on the globe. The political environment is an important factor for your consideration because not all countries and governments will see your business the same way you do. You may look at your business as being all about giving consumers a choice to have better access to products and services. But the politicians in the country you're about to enter may see your business as a threat to an industry that employs a lot of their people, or they may see it as a source of tax revenue for their coffers. There are also some countries where the bureaucracies with which you must deal to get your product or service to market can make a visit to the driver's license bureau feel like a day at the spa. In essence, some nations are more business-friendly than others. In some countries, corruption within the government ranks can create challenges for you. So how do you go about finding out which countries might be a better political fit for you than others? There are great websites, such as transparency.org and doingbusiness.org, where you can see how countries rank on both the ease of doing business and the transparency with which the markets operate. You can visit these websites and look at the factors that are important to your business. Once you've gathered the information, it may be helpful to create a chart where you can show others in the organization how the countries stack up. I suggest creating a scoring system so you can assign a weight reflecting the importance of a specific factor and then rate the countries you're evaluating compared to one another. For example, if your margins are really narrow, you may want to look at the tax rates by country and rank them accordingly. A rating system will help you prioritize your efforts. How many US dollars will a gallon of gasoline cost you in Germany? To figure that out, you need to convert the currency in the European zone from euros to dollars. And since Germany sells gasoline by the liter, you have to do some more math. But we won't tackle the metric system right now. An important step in determining where and how to enter new markets is to understand the different economic structures, currencies, markets, and other geographies. Performing an economic analysis of another country is a two-step process. The first can be done in the comfort of your own home or office. You start by reading the reports made available by the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development at OECD.org. Check out the tab entitled Countries to look up the country of interest. If you want to dive really deep, you can check out the Statistics tab. Websites such as CIA.gov and BuyUSA.gov are also good sources of information. What you're looking for on these sites is information about how the economy and the new market is structured. I'd suggest you create a table where you can track some key points that will be important to your plan, such as the type of currency used, the value of that currency relative to your own, how this exchange rate has moved over the last several years, what is forecasted to happen in the coming years, and the growth rate of your economy in your particular industry, and of course, the tax situation. When you've gathered this information, you'll have a better view of the pricing options available to you. Think about how you will put this information to work, and keep in mind, you may not be able to offer your product at a competitive price in all markets. On the flip side, there may be some markets where you can make better margins and profits because of the economic differences. Understanding this will help you decide where to invest your resources. If you really want to stretch your comfort zones, attend a wedding in a different country and under a different religion from where you grew up. I think you'll see different values, traditions, symbols, and language on display. There are 4 key components to a social or cultural analysis when you're assessing a new country. The first relates to values. Values can change from family to family. I'm sure you can probably tell some good stories from when you've gone to a holiday meal at someone else's house. Those shifts can be even more significant when you look at the values from country to country. Check out the website below to gain an appreciation for the different types of value orientations that occur around the world. This site has very useful comparison charts to help get you started. The next key component is the customs or traditions used in business. These vary from country to country as well. In the US, gift giving is reserved for special events such as birthdays and major holidays. However, in some Asian countries, a visitor is expected to bring a gift for just about every meeting. In the Middle East, it's common for someone who's selling a product or service to give a gift to the buyer when the deal is completed. The key is to do your homework in advance. You want to be sure to understand some of the common courtesies that are observed in other cultures when expanding internationally. A good place for this is at a nearby university or an online language course. In my experience, the professors who teach language courses are excellent sources of knowledge about the cultures and countries where that language is spoken. Next, let's look at symbols. When considering how different societies look at cultural symbols, the Eiffel Tower is a good example. The French are very proud of the Eiffel Tower, and they enjoy seeing it used in advertisements for products. However, the Greeks consider the Parthenon to be a sacred place, and they have reacted negatively when companies have tried to use this important symbol related to commercial activities. It's important for you to do your homework on this. Ask expatriates to look at your graphics and provide honest feedback. A good practice is to perform market research on any imagery or visuals before you release them in a different country. Finally, there's language. Certainly more misunderstandings and issues arise because we all use language differently. Sometimes it's not just the literal translation that creates confusion, but the way things are phrased or even the tone in which they're communicated. Track these social factors in the table you created to capture all your pestle insights. Think of how you can explain these cultural differences and the impact they'll have on your marketing plan to others within your organization. Around the globe, there are differences in infrastructure and technology that can have a significant impact on your ability to take your product into new markets. It's especially important to look at the technologies upon which your product or service is dependent to ensure they will support the distribution, trial, and adoption of your offering. This technological assessment is important, as it may help you avoid the situation where your new customers can't buy or use your product due to a lack of infrastructure support. To perform your technological analysis, I'd suggest you create a list of all the steps required to get your product from the shipping dock to the end user. And don't leave anything out. Be certain to write down all the steps, along with how things are moved from one point to the next. In the first column, list the moves your product makes. In the next column, note some of the details, and don't take anything for granted. Does your product come in an oversized box? Is refrigeration required? Is it okay for it to get wet? Is immediate payment required? Next, capture the details about how a new customer first experiences your product or service. Do they need special complementary technologies, such as a certain voltage, type of wireless signal? Do they need access to clean water? Where does this trial experience take place? Does the retail outlet have enough room? Then, think about the environment in which they will use your offering continuously after they've tried it. How will they dispose of it when they're finished? Is the packaging appropriate to get it all the way from the dock to the end of its useful life? I encourage you to get several people involved in this process and role-play various scenarios and potential customer experiences. Some fantastic ideas can also be found by looking at technological factors missed by your competitors. Can you find a way to simplify or reduce the number of steps required to buy or use a competitive product? As a result, you may end up creating new product and service ideas that you hadn't previously considered and open new opportunities for your business to grow. When approaching an expansion into a new market, you want to look for opportunities in the market where you can be in the best possible position to win. You will want the best features that deliver the benefits most important to the customer, the best pricing that enables the consumer to value your product, or the perfect distribution outlet so your product is available at the precise moment someone is ready to buy. To figure out where to gain the advantage, you first have to understand where the competition is today. In this part of the analysis, consider who you'll be competing against and what they're offering to the market today, and how realistic you think your chances will be of winning. To do this analysis, start by listing the major competitors you expect to face in the new market, and then break them down on the 4 Ps of marketing. You'll first want to know about their product, what features it has, how it's packaged, how frequently do they revise or update it. Then we come to the price. Which pricing strategy have they taken? What pricing moves have they historically made when others have entered the market? Next, assess the place. How do they get their product to the marketplace? Is that the most efficient way? And lastly, look at their promotional tools. How do they communicate to their customers? How do customers perceive their positioning? Along with the 4 Ps, assess the strength of your competitors. You may find that some have solid partnerships and/or balance sheets. Others may be in a much weaker strategic position. Your findings can be compiled into a tracking sheet to make it easy to explain to others. Think about how you can use a competitive analysis to help inform your plans to enter a new market. You may find some tidbits that give you the edge over your competition. There are 4 main legal frameworks around the world, and you need to be aware of the differences you may face. Systems of common law, such as those in the UK and US, are based upon previously accepted customs and precedents set by the courts. Code law is another type that is seen in Germany, Japan, and other countries where virtually everything is covered by written rules or codes. Islamic law is different still, as is the commercial legal system used by Marxist socialist countries. The respect of your patents and your ability to protect your intellectual property is another key consideration. Countries with a Marxist socialist bias tend not to respect the patent laws of common and code law countries. Why is this a big deal? Well, for many brands, the number of counterfeit and knockoff products sold in non-authorized retailers is alarming. To prepare for your international expansion, you need to assess the legal environment in the new market. You can start by visiting buyusa.gov and cia.gov. The website transparency.org is another great source of information. On these sites, you can learn about the legal structure as well as get direct information on what is required to register your business in other countries. To help organize the information you're going to uncover, I recommend creating a spreadsheet where you can visually display the considerations important to you and your business. Start this by listing the items you will need to know about each country across the top. For example, does the country require registration? Do you need to have a local address? Are there laws related to the handling and transport of products like yours? Are there limitations on disposal or recycling? Does the country have a history of respecting intellectual property laws in your industry? You may come up with several more, but this gives you an idea of where to start. When you combine all the factors in the PESTLE analysis, you'll now have several sheets where you can aggregate the data and get a snapshot of which country or countries look the most attractive to you. How did your analysis turn out? As you learn more about the new market where you plan to enter, your analysis of the competitive offerings and what the consumers want in those markets may lead to product adaptation and refinement of your offerings. But not all product adaptations require new formulations or recipe changes. There are changes made to consumer packaged goods as well. In the US, it's not uncommon for customers to buy shampoo in bottles ranging from 12 to 24 ounces. However, in developing markets, consumers may not have enough cash to buy enough shampoo to last 3 months. And the local retail outlet may not have enough shelf space to carry big bottles either. So some companies use product adaptation efforts to focus on smaller packaging options that enable them to make similar margins while addressing the retail constraints. Some companies have found their best opportunity is to develop completely new products to enter new geographies, rather than try to adapt their legacy lines. This may be the best option for you if your company is highly regulated, if it's expensive or time-consuming for you to switch production lines between batches, or if your company struggles with making changes. Making the decision to create a new product to enter a new market is one that requires thoughtful analysis. But this can also lead to the greatest reward. A useful way to guide your company through the decision-making process is to create a grid that identifies the issues you need to address. Start by listing your products in a column, filling out the table across the top with the product, price, and place components of the marketing mix. Then, populate the cells with comments about how your current offering matches the needs of the customer for each of the 4 Ps. I encourage you to include multiple stakeholders in your organization in this exercise. Will your company get the best results by adapting your current products or developing new ones? Answering this question will help save you time, money, and frustration by ensuring you're on the right path. An important consideration for many companies is the level of capital required for investment into new products. It may be more feasible financially to make an adaptation to an existing line rather than create a new product. So it's a good idea to have your finance and accounting partners involved in these discussions. I want you to imagine you work in the marketing department of a company that makes men's razors. Your company has a long history of making product improvements and has successfully captured the dominant share of the premium razor market in the US, where men are willing to pay $20 per month. But you've just been told that you need to create a plan to get more growth from developing economies. As you start your research, you learn a couple of big challenges to this plan. One is that the developing market customer is not willing to spend $20 per month on razors. What's more, the market research shows men in these countries may only shave once per week or less. For example, success will require a plan to get men in these countries to shave more often. This is referred to as market development. It's the type of challenge many companies face due to the economic, societal, and technical factor differences they find between their home and new target geographies. Here are some ideas on how to determine if marketing development activities will be needed so you can begin your planning and budgeting in advance. I suggest creating a sheet where you can list all the things we know about how customers use your product today in your home market. This should include everything from where do they learn about the product, how do they gather information or make comparisons to competitors, where they buy the product, and so on. In a column next to this list, document what's different about the consumers in the new market. It's important to separate assumptions from knowns when completing this portion of the exercise. You'll want to validate the assumptions before you invest in your market development plan. In your final column, highlight the differences between your home and future market. You can imagine what you'll do later as your plan comes together. You will focus on creating ideas of how you can fill the gaps to develop the new market. Diversification is the strategy of adding a new business unit or product line to your company while entering a new market. You may choose to pursue this option if you want to grow internationally, but your current products or business lines do not fit or align with customer needs. While investigating the new markets, you may have uncovered an interesting opportunity that falls outside of your current business line. Capitalizing on this insight may require new resources, talents, and tools that you haven't used in the past. Here's an example. Let's say your current business is focused on making and selling potato chips. You began the analysis to consider exporting them to Brazil, but after doing your pestle, you decide Brazil isn't the right country for your potato chip business, but uncover an underserved opportunity for peanut butter and jelly to be packaged together in the same jar. Developing or licensing this product so you can expand into Brazil is certainly an option. It may allow you to get into a high-growth geography and perhaps identify other opportunities for the future. But it requires you to add new capabilities, suppliers, partners, and skills. Not all companies are comfortable with pursuing a diversification strategy. A keen understanding of what your company values, the level of risk tolerance, and access to resources will be needed before you can begin implementing a diversification deal. There's no right answer when it comes to diversifying. The best solution is the one that will fit your business and its culture. Will your company be able to manage the risks, or does it take more sense to stick with your core competencies? Answering this question will help you determine if diversification is the right approach for you. As you're thinking about options to expand your business outside of your home market, one of the strategies to consider is exporting. At its core, the exporting model places the lowest burden on your organization, usually requires the least amount of cash, and can be the fastest method to get you into a new market. However, there are some trade-offs. When you go with exporting as your strategy, essentially what you do is take your product out of your facility, sell it to a second partner, and then give up control on what happens next. In all likelihood, that partner is going to push for a lower transfer price because they're going to take a significant amount of risk to get the product through the distribution channels to the end consumer, deal with the regulatory and tax issues, address customer complaints and returns, and battle with the competitors in the marketplace. Now, I realize people may not have the money to build their own team, do all of these tasks, and invest in creating the systems and business infrastructure necessary to make their business successful in a different country. So, I recommend finding an export partner may be the next best option. Choosing the right export partner is a critical first step. You can get good ideas on who's trustworthy and comes with a record of success by talking with the trade group or industry council in your sector of the economy, networking with other companies that export to gather references and success stories, and connecting with the nearby Foreign and Commercial Services Division of the International Trade Administration. You can find them at buyusa.gov. Click on the option that says Export Products from the U.S. There you can find the Export Assistance Center near you. A best practice is to meet and interview at least 2 or 3 potential distributors for your product. You'll want to get comfortable with the level of commitment they will make. Some key questions include, how many people will they employ to focus on your business? What's their area of expertise? How much inventory will they carry? And others. Finding the right partner to export your product is an important first step, but it's just the beginning. If you're building or have built a brand in your home country that you believe will have global appeal, franchising or licensing is a good option to expand internationally while maintaining some marketing control. A franchise or license is a contractual agreement wherein you maintain tight control of important aspects of the brand, such as the name, logo, manufacturing method, and so forth. I'm sure you've seen many examples of franchise businesses while walking down the street when you look at all the logos and signage. When you export out of your home country, you essentially turn over the control of the marketing mix to the company that's going to import your brand into their country. With a franchise or licensing strategy to global expansion, you have the opportunity to define in great detail the product component of the 4P mix. You will also get a strong voice in the promotional side of the 4P mix by describing how your brand marks can be used. This added level of control is an important consideration if you ultimately believe you will expand beyond just one international country, and you may want to have direct control over these markets in the long run. If this is the route you want to pursue as your expansion strategy, start by documenting the key components of your brand that you want to ensure stay consistent no matter where a customer may encounter your product or service. You may have already done this. Some people call it a brand strategy, a brand guideline, or a style guide. This should capture the DNA of your brand. Finding someone to license or franchise your brand can be pursued much the same way you would find a distributor or importer. The key is to do significant due diligence to ensure this potential franchisee is someone you can trust, someone you see eye to eye with about your brand, and someone you can envision as being a great brand ambassador for your business. Often, the licensee will pay an upfront fee to you in return for commitments that they will have exclusive rights within certain geographic boundaries for a specific time frame. Once you've identified potential partners, negotiate these important terms. A lawyer will be necessary to partner with you for this stage of the game. You will want to be certain to find legal counsel that has experience in franchising and licensing deals. And you should also engage a sharp tax accountant, as the nuances of tax laws on licensing can get complicated between countries. As you expand internationally, is your brand one that can carry a promise to consumers in different cultures? If so, this might be the right strategy for you. The concept of a marriage between two people is often considered analogous to a joint venture in business. Each party brings certain skills, assets, value, and sometimes debt to the relationship. In the context of international marketing expansion, the joint venture structure includes two or more partners who contractually agree to develop a business together. This method of entering a new market gives you more control and input than either exporting or a licensing agreement, but also requires a bigger investment in terms of time and, in all likelihood, dollars. This arrangement can work very well in those situations where you have an existing relationship with a person or company in the new geography that you trust, and just as importantly, one with whom you would like to work alongside. These partnerships come at a cost, though. To get access to the local expertise and capabilities in a joint venture structure means that you will have to give some percentage of ownership to the local partner. Joint ventures have shared ownership, and the split can range depending upon how much value each party is bringing. Typically, the company with the brand will want to retain at least 50.1% to ensure long-term control. Lawyers and accountants will certainly need to be involved to make recommendations on how to best structure the relationship, as the laws and tax implications can vary depending upon the country. Like any partnership, there are two sides to this contract. What you get out of a joint venture is peace of mind that you have someone else who is invested in the business with you. On the other side, the joint venture partner will have demands of you that will be laid out in the contract as well. The agreement should also address the plan for what happens if the business doesn't succeed. It is not uncommon for companies to progress through the different market expansion options, and in some cases have exporting partners in one region, franchisees in another, and joint venture partners in yet a third. Many companies have successful joint ventures and find this to be an excellent way to expand while managing risks. When done well, it can be like one of those marriages where the days are mostly sunny and the future is bright. One strategic option to pursue for international expansion is the direct investment model. This requires total commitment. The benefit of pursuing the direct investment path is that you get to make all the choices within your control. You select everything from the location of your business, who you hire, how they are trained and managed. You also manage all the aspects of the marketing mix. You don't have the same level of control if you go with the export, licensing, or joint venture models. When you make the direct investment to open a new geography, you also keep all the profits from your venture, rather than splitting them with intermediaries or partners. Of course, you get this particular benefit because you're the one taking the financial, organizational, and reputational risk to open the new market. Opening a new market and going direct are much like starting a brand new business. There are several factors you must consider. Typically, the first step is to incorporate or establish a new business entity in the new country. This helps provide the appropriate level of structure and separation between your existing successful business unit and the new organization. In many countries, it's simply a requirement that you have a locally registered company. You'll want to get your lawyers involved early to figure out what must be done and what is the best way to get it accomplished. You can learn more about the requirements in various countries at buyusa.gov. After you've taken the necessary steps to get your new company registered, begin adding staff who have the knowledge and skills to get your product into the country through the distribution channel to your end customer. LinkedIn is one of the best resources for finding people you can hire around the globe to help you market your products. If you have a retail website, consider whether or not your ERP is capable of managing e-commerce in different languages and currencies. Creating a checklist of the various systems and tools you'll need will be helpful to ensure you don't miss something critical while you're building this business. The investments in people, money, and time are significant when pursuing the direct investment model, and so are the potential rewards. If you're successful in this approach, you'll likely create not only an ongoing profit stream, but also a framework or template for how to do other international expansions. When it comes to expanding internationally, there are some very valuable resources available from government departments and divisions in the United States. The U.S. Department of Commerce has several responsibilities, one of which is to promote free trade agreements through exporting of U.S. goods and services to other countries. Regardless of where your company is based, the resources available through some of their websites will be valuable to you. Look at the webpage of the International Trade Administration, which is part of the Department of Commerce at trade.gov. In the About ITA tab, you'll find some great resources at Industry and Analysis. They have a wide range of government reports, resources, tools, and departments. On this site, you can learn about issues directly affecting your particular industry. Do you need to know if your product will face a tariff when you export to another country? Roll down to the tariff section, and you can look up any tariffs that may apply. You may be able to save thousands of dollars and countless hours by using the reports available here rather than doing your own primary research. Many of the links in the International Trade Association site will take you to the export.gov site. Some will take you to buyusa.gov. Both of these are part of the Commercial Services Division of the ITA. They provide not only the free resources we've reviewed here, but they also have reasonably priced programs to help companies assess and gain access to other markets. You can find more information about the offices near you at these websites. Other governments have similar resources and capabilities too. To do a deeper dive into the European Union, check out the European Commission's website at ec.europa.eu. For information on Japan, look at customs.go.jp. And you can find the right link to the Commerce Department of every country in the world by visiting state.gov and look in the Countries and Areas section. One of the most comprehensive sites for data about emerging and developing countries is hosted by World Bank. At worldbank.org, you'll get data about individual countries, including demographics, population trends, income levels, and growth rates, just to name a few. For example, if your software development firm is considering an international expansion, you can click on the Data tab and then look at By Topic to find a report on infrastructure. Combined with the other data sources on this site, you can gather the information needed to create a picture of the market sizes and dynamics for numerous industries and product ideas in your targeted countries. Another fantastic source of information about countries and regions can be found at CIA.gov. The first place to start is the World Factbook. The data here are typically very accurate and easily accessible. You can research regions or individual countries and uncover interesting clues about other nations. If your company is developing new products for first-time mothers, you can find the mother's mean age at first birth for every country in the world here. In general, the World Bank and CIA sites have more reliable data than some of the commonly searched sites, such as Wikipedia. While the layout and structure require a bit more navigation on these two, the payoff is well worth the effort. Finding specific details about your industry and the opportunities for growth outside of your home market through an industry trade group or association can be like found money. Just about every industry has a trade group. These associations have missions to protect and expand the industry for their members. One of the most important roles played by trade groups and associations is in policy formation and management. Being able to influence law and decision makers is a critical function for these groups. Trade groups move to action when a threat, such as pending legislation, negative media coverage, or destabilizing action from outside the industry emerges. They also help promote the positive effects and impacts of their industry as part of their efforts to ensure unnecessary burdens, laws, regulations, and rules are not enacted to slow the industry down. Trade associations have learned to provide the best possible protection for their constituents. They need data and facts. Here's why this is important to you. These data and facts may be available to you as you look at international expansion. What's more, beyond just the data, your trade group or association may be able to provide you with some of the tools and resources needed to enter new markets. It's possible they've already done the heavy lifting to figure out how to get your product registered in a new country. If you're looking for potential distribution partners who will take your exported product into new lands, there's likely no better way to find them than by having a booth at the national meeting of your major industry association. The people who hold leadership positions in trade associations are typically very service-oriented and motivated to help grow your business. What can your trade association tell you about the international expansion options for your business? By now, you've gathered a lot of data about which market to enter. You need to find a way to make a final selection and convince others in the organization. I'd suggest using a scoring chart. Across the top, put the key criteria that you're going to use to make your decision. The outcomes of a pestle analysis could be one method of comparison. You may choose to add some criteria in columns. The important piece of these criteria is to weigh them appropriately. You can adjust these based upon the relative importance of the criteria to your company or business scenario. If you're in a highly regulated industry, you may want to change the weighting here. You could challenge each of these weights and discuss them with others involved in the decision-making process. The next step is to determine how you're going to turn your subjective inputs into quantifiable numbers so you can score your options. My personal preference is to use a rating scale, where 5 represents the best-in-class option for a given category. 3 is used to score an option where it isn't outright objectionable, but also not the best. Finally, a 1 is used to denote that this is the least attractive consideration. I use the 5-3-1 method to drive specific choices and highlight the added value of an option amongst the best in class. This seems to work better than a 3-2-1 scale. To get an even greater spread, you could consider a 9-3-1 model. You need to write out what these scores represent for each individual column. For example, a 5 in the political column could represent low barriers to entry and high transparency ratings. A 3 could reflect some corruption in the industry, and a 1 could reflect trade restrictions and other significant barriers to your industry. The key is to create a tool that will help you reach a decision, communicate that decision, and assist others in the organization with buying into it. Experiment with this tool and revise it so it meets your needs. Incoterms are standardized terms and guidelines for global trade. The phrase is an acronym for International Commercial Terms. They were created and are maintained by the International Chamber of Commerce. These are important because they are used to define whether the seller or buyer will be paying the shipping freight, taxes, duties, and other expenses. They also determine who will pay for any insurance expenses and precisely where and when the title to the goods transfers from one party to the other. You need to be aware of these points because they can impact the final delivered costs of your product. There are four main categories of Incoterms, and they are easily remembered by thinking of when the shipper is incurring costs and carrying the shipping risks. The E category relates to those terms where the shipper stops incurring delivery expenses and bearing the damage risk at the time of departure from their plant. The phrase Ex Works is the ideal term from the manufacturer's perspective. Essentially, this means you make your product and place it on your shipping dock. The customer then pays for all shipping and insurance, and your responsibility ends as soon as the customer or their designated carrier removes it from your dock. The F category relates to terms where the manufacturer moves the product from their docks and transfers it to the buyer or their designated carrier at a specific place. An example is FAS, which means the manufacturer delivers the product free alongside ship. This means the seller is responsible for getting the product from the factory to the shipping port, and title transfers to the buyer at the moment the material crosses over onto the ship. The buyer then pays all transportation costs from that point forward. The C category is for scenarios where the manufacturer is responsible for the majority of the shipping costs and risks. An example is CPT, or carriage paid to. In this case, the seller covers all the costs for getting the product across the ocean and to the final port of entry in the new country. But the risk associated with the transport transferred to the buyer when the product crossed the bow of the ship in the import country. Finally, the D category is for those scenarios where the risk transfers to the buyer only when the product arrives at a specified point in the new country. An example is DDP, which stands for Delivery Duty Paid. In this scenario, the seller is responsible for all costs and risks associated with moving the product all the way to the buyer's location, and the buyer finally takes responsibility to move the product off the transport vehicle and onto their dock. To do a deeper dive on the Incoterms, I suggest searching the web and learning more at the sites listed below. There are specialists and consultants who can bring their expertise to your company if this is all new to you. Consider finding the right talent to lead this effort if you don't have experience with Incoterms on your team today. A product is more than just a collection of parts. There's an important interplay between the product, the price, the place where you buy it, and the promotion of the brand. These are called the 4 Ps of marketing. You've likely heard of them before. You should not assume that consumers in the new market you're about to enter will see your 4 P mix the same as people do in your home market. The first P, product, is listed first because it's the cornerstone of the marketing plan. When marketers talk about the product, they're referring to the physical, tangible components of the product as well as the brand promise. The next P is price. Price comes right after product because the price a company places on a product plays an important role in the perception of the brand. Now we come to the third P, which stands for place. In essence, it refers to where the consumer can acquire the product. Finally, the last P stands for promotion. This represents the messaging methods, communication tools, and other levers the marketing team will pull to get the consumer to make the purchase. When it comes to international marketing, the same 4 P principles apply. You may find that you need to revise or change some of your 4 P components to adjust to the local culture, tastes, needs, and desires. You will need to consider each of these factors and develop the strategy that not only works for your company, but meets the customer where you have a chance to succeed in the marketplace. Product adaptation is defined quite simply. It refers to adapting or changing your product to reflect the local needs in a new market. As the cornerstone of the 4 Ps, product plays the most important role for many companies. So it's vital that you consider what adaptations will be required when you expand internationally. Another important consideration in the adaptation of your product will be the size of your packaging. In Western countries, it's common for consumers to purchase large volumes of product at a time. Exhibit A, the 64-ounce laundry detergent bottle. In developed markets, these large volume products serve the customer well because they have the space to store them and the wealth to buy enough detergent to last them for 3 months. But if you go into a bodega in Central America, you'll notice that the retailer doesn't have room on their shelves to stock a 64-ounce bottle. What's more, the customers there don't have enough income to buy that much detergent, and they certainly don't have enough storage space at home for the bottle. So the product adaptation here requires a packaging change to small cachets that may be used for 1 or 2 laundry washing events. While you're considering the packaging changes that may be necessary for your international expansion, you should also investigate the colors you'll use in your labels and branding. In many Western cultures, the color red is used as a warning and can mean danger, while in Eastern cultures, the same color is symbolic of good fortune and is worn in wedding ceremonies. So you won't see many baby food products on store shelves with red labels in the United States, but you may see them in China. Product adaptation creates great opportunities for you to bring to market a product that is specifically tailored to the local needs in the new market. Think about what adaptations you may need to make to enter a new geography. As you expand internationally, determining your pricing strategy and end user price point require a little math. So factoring in the expenses other than just the product price is an important step to ensure you're setting your price properly. Those expenses typically include shipping and transportation as well as extra tariffs, duties, and taxes. Finally, paying attention to the exchange rate between the currency in your home market and in the new country is a critical step. You can find the latest exchange rates online using any one of the currency converter sites. Keep in mind, you may want to use different pricing strategies when you enter new markets. In some instances, you may choose to take a lower net margin by going into a market at a lower price in order to gain market share or reach a price point that will trigger demand in lower income economies. In some situations, that added volume from a low price market can help your factory reach a scale that yields better overall margins. However, be cautious and pay attention to the differential between the market price in your home market and the market entry prices in these new markets. There are many savvy middlemen out there who buy product in low price markets and then ship them to higher price markets to make a few percentage points of profit. If you see your product being sold on the web in your home market by someone other than you, this is a good indicator someone is taking advantage of your pricing strategy in other parts of the world. A good practice is to have the people closest to the customer in each market routinely perform a price audit and provide data to the marketing team for analysis. It could be your distributor or joint venture partner or your sales team gathering this information for you. The key is to monitor your market price and adjust as necessary. Your distribution channel may change when you go into new geographies. Exactly how this will impact your business is dependent upon the expansion strategy you choose to pursue. The considerations vary depending upon whether you use an export model, franchising initiative, joint venture, or direct investment effort. For example, if your business relies heavily on e-commerce purchases and the delivery of products from your facilities to the consumer via mail or package delivery services, you should be aware that these complementary systems are not always as developed and efficient in each country. If you don't have someone on your team with skill and experience in dealing with freight forwarders, exporting paperwork, and logistics planning, you want to secure the services of someone who can do this for you. The large package delivery companies can provide these services. So perhaps you won't need to add headcount to get started. You can learn more about the specifics at export.gov. It's also important to pay attention to different national holidays and religious seasons. For example, many companies avoid shipping product to China for arrival during the Chinese New Year when most businesses stop functioning for about 3 weeks. An important consideration for any consumer-oriented product that you may take into an emerging or developing market lies in the actual retail site. Many countries do not have large superstores. Rather, many consumer products are sold in small bodegas, stalls, and shops that don't have much space to offer. If you have a new product that you're introducing into the market, you may also need to consider the importance the retailer plays in educating and training the consumer. Do opportunities exist for you to present a unique benefit to the market through your distribution modifications? I encourage you to challenge some of your core assumptions and look for new growth potential. Coca-Cola once got itself into big trouble. In advertising images, they changed the columns of the Parthenon to the icon shape of the Coca-Cola bottle. They didn't realize until after the fact that the Greeks consider the Parthenon to be a religious symbol, not appropriate for advertising a consumer product. There are hundreds of examples where companies have made promotional mistakes in international markets, but you don't have to be one of them. Promotion is the 4P component that deals with advertising, personal selling, public relations, web presence, coupons, and other tools used to communicate with your customers and drive commerce. Your advertising may need to be adjusted to not only inform consumers about the existence of your product, but also expose them to basic training on how to use it. This is especially true in those markets where the retail channels for your product or industry are not yet fully developed or specialized. The key is to not assume that the advertising methods you've used in your home market are the best ones to employ as you expand globally. In general, when it comes to hiring salespeople in a different country, the preferred approach is to hire local salespeople who are natives to the culture, able to speak the language fluently, and understand the customs and values of your customers. The use of web and e-commerce is also different around the globe. Do you need to create a website in new languages? Do the customers in the new market have access to credit so they can make online purchases? As you do your investigation, you may find there are unique opportunities to adjust your e-commerce business model. Deal promotions, such as coupons, buy one, get one free, short-term sales, rebates, and others should be considered as well. Because the majority of deal promotions typically require some support and participation at the retail level, make sure to understand if they're willing to engage and assist in your efforts. You will need to promote your product when you expand into new countries, and this can be done successfully. The key is to pay attention to the cultural variations you will encounter and to be sensitized to them. There are many stories of companies that failed to do their homework when naming a product or doing simple translations of their promotional materials. Invariably, these tales relate to a word or phrase that could be misconstrued in a different language. These translation issues can be uncovered early. Here are some steps to follow. Get all of your marketing materials translated to the languages of other countries you're looking to enter. Don't rely on the person in your office who took 2 years of Spanish in middle school to do this for you. Also, don't rely on simple online translation tools. Hire a translation firm to do this for you. The fees are well worth the stress you may save. You can find translation firms by searching online. Once you get your translations completed, send them to a second translation house and ask them to translate the materials back to your home market language. It's important that this step be completed by someone other than the original translator. This is called back translation. This helps avoid some of the mistakes that can occur. Before you go to market with any of these materials, have someone who is raised as a native speaker of the language review the materials. Specifically, ask them to consider slang and shorthand phrases that may trip you up. This can be done by your export distributor, franchisee, or joint venture partner. If you're going the direct investment route, make sure someone on your staff is able to translate materials for you. It isn't flattering when your marketing materials show up on a web page highlighting bad translation mistakes. These self-inflicted wounds can be avoided. Just slow down and ensure it's done right. Your company, like virtually every other company, will need to grow in international markets to be successful in the long run. There are fantastic expansion opportunities that may enable you and your company to develop new skills, products, and revenue streams by entering new geographies. Many companies use the revenue growth they derive from other countries to fund new product development efforts and keep their competitors off balance. Publicly traded firms especially like the growth in sales and earnings they can get by moving into new countries. You now have the tools to help your company grow internationally. If you'd like to explore this topic more deeply, one of the best ways to see what other companies are doing is to read the Wall Street Journal on a daily basis. Other websites and periodicals of interest might include Fortune Magazine, Inc. Magazine, and Advertising Age. I've also included a link in the exercise files to 2 great white papers that discuss international marketing strategy. Taking your product internationally is certainly going to be a lot of work. I've covered the tools you need to do the assessments and analysis, but there's also a lot of fun to be had as you learn about new cultures, new customers, and different business models. There's an exciting and significant opportunity for growth for you and your company. Congratulations on completing this course. I look forward to reading about your next great international expansion.